This week, I'm going after everybody's Star Wars darling over on that Disney Plus channel. The show is called Urso, and it stars Felicity Jones reprising her role of Jyn Erso from Rogue One. What? It's not called Urso? It's not... Felicity Jones isn't even in it? Well, what's it called? Andor? They made a show about Cassian Andor. Guys, welcome to my first episode of Geek Rants here on the Geeks & Co. YouTube channel. I am Messiah Complex Cosplay, and this week I'm going to be a grumpy old man, or in this case, I guess a grumpy old geek, complaining about something on the internet, as us grumpy old men do. There's a show on Disney Plus, the latest Star Wars show called Andor, based on the character from the prequel movie Rogue One. So it's a prequel show to a prequel movie. I'm not going to do a full breakdown of the entire first season of Andor. If you're here and you're watching this, I'm going to assume you've seen it. I am going to have to talk about some spoilers, so if you don't want to be spoiled, move right along, go on to the next video where we bitch and rant about something else. I am, however, so I'm not going to do a full breakdown of the show, but I am going to talk about the key characters on the show and how the show revolves around those key characters, or at least the various plots on the show and how they revolve around those characters. It's not my main beef with the show. It's not even my side beef with the show, but it's important to lay some groundwork. In this case, you've got 5 major characters that are supporting the show through 5 major plot elements. The first 2 of those, I think, are the best part of this show, Mon Mothma and Luthen. Mon Mothma is played by, and I've got it written down here, Genevieve O'Reilly. Genevieve O'Reilly is an accomplished actress who has played Mon Mothma in other media before. Mon Mothma is a character from the original trilogy of Star Wars back in '77. She appeared in A New Hope. She has since appeared across a bunch of different shows through the comics, through the legacy stuff, and through novels as well. Her role in the show is to be the person on the ground on Coruscant. She is a senator in the Galactic Republic under Papa Palpatine. This is 5 years before A New Hope starts in the Battle of Yavin. She is there to try to push for positive change against the Galactic Empire within the Senate, using whatever political power she still has, as well as she is looking to fill the role of a financial facilitator to fund these rebel cells that are scattered throughout the galaxy. She is, and that plot thread is absolutely amazing on the show. The other part of the show that's amazing is Luthen, as I mentioned, played by Stellan Skarsgård. His job on the show and his through plot line is to be liaison between Mon Mothma on Coruscant as she's making her political and financial movements and these individual cells that are actively resisting the Galactic Empire throughout the galaxy. He goes from cell to cell to cell. What will eventually become the Rebel Alliance, Luthen's job, as it were, is to bring those cells together as best he can, and also, as he mentions, to foment unrest within the Empire. As I think he said on the show a few times, the more pissed off people get, the more they're going to rebel against the current and reigning regime. Those 2 elements are the best elements of the show. The third element of the show is the ISB, which is the intelligence arm of the Galactic Empire. The main character that's surrounding that is Dedra Meero, and that's played by Denise Gough. That is it's an okay element of the show. What it does is it allows us to put a face on the Empire. Like, make no mistake, the Empire is the big bad on this show. Like, the Empire has been the big bad throughout the entirety of Star Wars, whether it's First Order in the sequels or whatever it is. But we don't get Papa Palpatine, and we certainly don't get Vader like we've gotten in some past movies and TV. What we are getting is this Dedra Meero and the ISB to be the face of not only just the evilness of the Empire, but it also represents the bureaucracy of the Empire. Shows how big the Empire is. But it definitely gives us a character and a plot line through which a foil, if you will, for our protagonist to fence against. That's probably going to be about all the good things I have to say about Andor, because the rest of it kind of pisses me off. And we're going to start with the title character himself, Cassian Andor. Now, when this show was first announced, I was like, that guy? Really? I was confused. Now, this is a prequel. See, by the time we get to Rogue One, Cassian Andor is kind of a piece of shit character. Like, he's not a good guy. So, as you can tell by watching the first season here, this is 5 years beforehand, before he's become all bitter and jaded and cynical. He's a much cooler, much nicer, much more... What? He's still a piece of shit? He's already... What? He's a piece of shit now? So he just becomes a bigger piece of shit? He's a bigger piece of shit now? He's a brutal character. You don't really want to cheer for him. You're not invested in him getting in and out of any of these situations. And by the way, the situations he gets in are easily the most boring situations you're ever going to witness in TV. And I want to make sure that we're clear. I don't need this to be some action-packed extravaganza. I'm okay if they're doing world building and character building. The problem is he spends 3 episodes on this heist, which is 2.5 episodes of him just camping in the woods with a bunch of characters that, other than one of them, Vel, we never see again. And then he spends 4 episodes in prison making the same part for the Death Star over and over again. And again, we meet a bunch of characters that we're never going to see again, save one who is a off character in Rogue One, the guy he escapes the prison with. The character has very few redeeming qualities. And while Diego Luna, I'm sure the gentleman who plays Andor, is a capable actor, in this role, he is a black hole of charisma and charm. There's nothing there to root for. I didn't care. I wasn't invested in him escaping from the prison. Andy Serkis's character, I was invested in him escaping from the prison, but I couldn't care less about Andor escaping from the prison. Mind you, this is the problem with prequels. We know he's going to get out, and we know he's going to survive. He's not really in any peril, because we know 5 years from now, he's going to work with Jyn Erso and steal the plans for the Death Star, as we saw in Rogue One. This is the issue with prequels moving forward. But that's not what this is about. I'm not going to bitch about it being a prequel. That is just kind of baked in. Then we come to the 5th character in the 5th plot thread that is easily, and without question, the worst part of this show, and that's Cyril. And this is so bad, I didn't even look up the actor that plays Cyril. So if anybody wants to throw that in the comments below and let me know who that is, that would be great. Cyril is I don't know what you'd call it, an underachieving overachiever. He starts out working as a security guard on an Imperial-controlled world. He thinks he's the absolute shit, but he's just a nothing nobody on a nothing backwater planet. The boss leaves for a week. He decides to take charge, break a bunch of rules, and then he gets fired. And then he moves in with his mom, and then he takes a dead-end job. And if that was all of it, the whole time this is going on, by the way, I'm thinking the entire time, where is this going? Like, why is this guy even on the show? And why is this still a thread that's happening? And then we find out. During his off hours from his dead-end job as a clerk in the Imperial bureaucracy, Cyril decides to become a stalker. And I wish that was hyperbole. I wish I was just taking a small element and blowing it out of proportion. I am not. Earlier in the season, he gets interrogated or questioned by Dedra Meero, who we talked about before as the ISB officer, the supervisor that's in charge of the case tracking Andor after this heist thing that happened, whatever, I don't know, episode, whatever it was. Who cares? He stalks her. He figures out where she works. He hangs out in front of her work for days until she walks by. He pops out, basically accosts her, tells her he's been following her, can't stop thinking about her, and needs to be with her. To which she says, hey, this isn't cool. Why are you doing this? Don't ever do this again. You would think then that he would not. Now, I guess the final interaction between them in the finale, the season finale, was a matter of them both being there at the same time. He didn't necessarily follow her to Andor's, well, I shouldn't say his home planet, but the planet he grew up on with Marva, or Marva, the old broad who died, Aunt Petunia, for my Harry Potter fans out there. I guess he didn't follow her there, but once he saw her there, when they were both on that planet and he saw her there, he was eyes on her the entire time. Everything goes to hell. As you know, it's going to go to hell in that final episode during the funeral after the amazing speech that the Opportunia actress gave, which was probably the best part of the entire season, was that speech that she gave, the hologram speech from the droid at her funeral. He is eyes on her. Everything goes to hell. He saves her. He basically saves her life. And in that moment, they're stuck in, I don't know, some little side office where he's dragged her to get her out of harm's way. They clearly have a moment. They're looking at each other. Emotions are high and running and hot and welling, and you can see some tension between them. And it's like we're rewarding this guy for stalking her. Ugh. Awful. I don't know what the producers were thinking. I don't know who thought this was a great idea to introduce this character and have this be where this plot thread went, but it's amongst the cringiest things I've seen on television. It's brutal. All that aside, I understand that this Star Wars show is different than the, 3 Star Wars shows that have come before. I'm not oblivious to the fact that it's shot differently and it looks different. What I am, my side beef, so this isn't even still my main beef, my side beef is a lot of the fan base seems to want to pat themselves on the back for liking this show based on its maturity level. There's a lot of Barry Horowitz going on here, and if for my wrestling fans, you know who I'm talking about, that want to congratulate themselves because this is a much more mature, complex, emotionally complex series as opposed to the other series that have come before. This is a much more adult Star Wars because one guy said shit one time and they suggested a couple had sex one time. Like what you like. If you like it, great, and if you don't like it, that's cool. But the almost masturbatory way people want to congratulate themselves from liking it just because it's a mature Star Wars and it's clearly not aimed directly at children, it just comes across as so pretentious. But even that, all that aside, I could forgive all that. I'm not shooting this video if that's all it is, but that's not all it is. The last thing, and what I'm seeing recently, especially after a trailer for it just dropped, is now people are comparing Andor to The Mandalorian and using their opinions on The Mandalorian now to prop up Andor. They're saying that unlike The Mandalorian, Andor doesn't rely on a bunch of, it doesn't rely on the volume. It doesn't rely on a cute baby character. It doesn't rely on cameos. It's essentially, it doesn't rely on what Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau have baked in and built into The Mandalorian. It doesn't rely on that. It's a much more adult show. So they're shitting on The Mandalorian to prop up Andor. Now I can't be silent anymore. There's one key fact that everyone watching Andor has to understand, regardless of what plans may have been in place when these Star Wars shows started to debut on Disney+. If The Mandalorian had been a piece of shit, if The Mandalorian had been a giant flop, you don't get Andor. You don't get to have your show without The Mandalorian. And can we talk for a second? I keep seeing over and over this post that, Dave Filoni's The Mandalorian relies too much on legacy characters, relies too much on... One of the main characters in Andor is Mon Mothma from the original trilogy. And she's appeared on a whole bunch of other stuff. Even the main character, Andor, is from a previous film. The Mandalorian, when it first came out, was heralded. You got to remember, it was right after The Rise of Skywalker. It was heralded as the savior of Star Wars. And now all those same people want to shit on it just to prop up Andor. Stop it. If you want to love Andor, and you want to love Andor for all the cool reasons about Andor that you want to love it, that's awesome. But taking the piss out of The Mandalorian to help prop up your argument for Andor, there is zero reason for that. All you're really doing at that point is trying to divide the fan base. A fan base that's already not just divisive and divided, but also a fan base that has a terrible reputation for being toxic. So be positive about your show. I'm still going to shit on Andor, but be positive about it. Tell me positive things about it. Argue with me below and tell me why I'm wrong on all this, and I'm happy to engage you in conversation. But don't do it at the expense of The Mandalorian. The Mandalorian is carrying all these shows on its back, and it's going to continue to do so into season 3 and beyond. Don't ever think that's not going to be the case. We don't get any of this without The Mandalorian. See, look at this, all heated up and angry and ready to go. That's going to be it for this week, guys. Please make sure you hit the like and subscribe down at the bottom. It really helps. Throw some comments in the bottom. Again, let me know how wrong I am about this, or educate me, or hey, if you agree with me, go ahead and sound off in the comments on that too. I'm going to see you guys. I don't know if it'll be me next week, but you're going to see one of us grumpy old geeks ranting about whatever's pissing us off that week. Take care, guys. We'll see you next time.